Thank you so much. Very kind. I'm very excited to be here with y'all today. Really looking forward to get to share with you some of the thoughts that I have on brand and branding, cultivating a brand and allowing it to stay true to itself. So as was just said, I came out of a long stint with a menswear company in Dallas called Mizzen+Main. I was there for about 8 years and really helped develop the look and feel of that brand. And that's where a lot of this philosophy really was formed. And then now I'm starting a new brand called Holy Water, which we're very excited. If all goes according to plan, we should be in retail next week. It's Texas spring water. The spring is out in Keller, Texas. Delicious water, straight from the earth. Very abundant spring. If you've ever heard of Keller Springs Road, these are the springs of Keller. There are actual springs. Fun little, I didn't realize that until I got involved with this and we started talking to these folks. But this has been in development for, it'll be a year next month, so we're very excited to be launching, starting here in Dallas and then spreading out all around. I can get more into that. But since this is about branding and staying true to brands, it would be off-brand if I didn't open in a prayer. So I'm just going to pray real quick. Dear God, thank you so much for Wax Space, this gathering, this time to be able to share a lot of stuff that I've gotten to experience throughout time and this sort of method of approaching brand. God, I just ask you to speak through me. I ask this time be a blessing for everybody here. And bless our time together. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. So Mizzen+Main is this other brand. And I wanted to kind of give you a preview. I'm going to go more in depth into how I developed that brand and that character. But the main thought that I want to share with you all today in my approach to brand is that brands are characters. And the way that I got there is a little bit about me. I know I was billed for a long time on the flyer that I'm a photographer. I used to be a photographer. I haven't been for quite some time, but there is a lot of that philosophy baked into it. The photo on the left here is from my theater days. I grew up doing theater all from elementary school through college. That's actually what I got my major in, was theater performance. And so putting on characters, studying characters, embodying different personalities, that's like a big part of my training from like my early life. And then as I got into school, I started to get into photography and menswear at the same time. And menswear, I really started to like this brand called Rugby Ralph Lauren and also Ralph Lauren. It was in around like 2010-ish. There was a great subset brand of Ralph Lauren that came out that was like hyper prep, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I just absolutely ate it up, lived and breathed it, got to work in the retail store, and they created this like total environment. It really was a world. I mean, Ralph Lauren is the master at world building, and he was able to build this subset that made a lot of sense for the brand, and it was really fun to enter into. And at that time, I saw another company called Kyle James Patrick, which is a New England lifestyle brand, and he also learned from Ralph the playbook on how to build a world, and I loved his brand. It was the early days of Instagram. He was doing things I'd never seen before. It was super confusing to follow his company because you're like, how are they doing this? There's all these like shoots at these different mansions all the time. You're like, does he come from money? Does he not? It was like, what is this thing? And I loved it so much that I really wanted to be a part of it. I had like a friend that kind of knew this guy, and so I got his email and I messaged him because I was going to take a road trip with a buddy from Dallas to Boston, and Rhode Island's on the way where this company is based. And so I emailed him, I never heard back, but drove, knocked on his factory door. He happened to poke his head out, looked confused, opened the door and said, "Oh my God, you made it." And then we became very close friends. I ended up marrying him and his wife. It just was a great time. But that summer, I really got to be immersed in what it's like to build a brand world. And that summer was kind of ridiculous. We ended up basically just mansion hopping over New England, renting these places and doing extensive photo shoots all the time, cranking out a bunch of content. That's kind of where I was this like confusing element as a follower, and I was inside, it's like, okay, we're just working all the time. That's how, that it looks easy, but boy, is it just relentless. But I learned so much from Kyle on really exploding out your interests. He is unafraid of the things that he is interested in and putting forward that interest in the type of expressions that he did inside of the brand. And it's super duper powerful. So that was like one of the biggest things that I took from that. Then I left and I became a photographer. That's kind of what I was doing for the company while I was there. Came back to Dallas. Interned at a little place called Weld, shout out Weld for those who know, and started freelance photography. At that co-working space was Mizzen+Main, and eventually started taking their pictures, and then they asked me to be their creative director. I said yes, and I had really no idea what it meant to be a creative director. And so it's a confusing concept that you look it up and it's like, there's like 50 different definitions. There's kind of different types of creative directors. So I'm trying to figure out which one I am and exactly what my role is. But the role of creative director that I feel like I fit in is the one that really cares for the soul of a brand, of a company. I feel like the brand is the soul of a company. It is the singular factor that can maintain and stay consistent across time because it is real and it is alive and it is something that you can get to know and connect to. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is if you're a part of a brand, if you have your own brand, how to operate within an existing brand and how to create something or tap into something that wants to come into this world through the expression of a brand. So a brand is a character, and a character is a person. So, I think that individuals are really the most interesting thing that there is, because it's interesting that individuals, which is all of us are an individual, we are legitimately unique. All of our experiences, all of our interests, all of the things we have seen, what we haven't seen, people we've met, places we've been, the totality of who we are and how it mixes and comes together really makes us unique. And it's interesting. That's why we like meeting people, because it's something new. It's all of these things colliding together to create like a new individual experience that is you, that is me. And I think that is pretty cool. And so there's a quote that I heard a while back that it just sort of like super resonated in me, and I really think is a great anchor point for this approach that I'm talking about. And it is, in the particular lies the universal. In the particular lies the universal. So the way that I interpret that and what I experience is the more you drill down and specific that you get, the more and if you were trying to present that to someone, the more it unlocks universal truth and appeal. And that's why I think individuals are the same. If you flip this phrase and you could say, in the universal lies no particulars. So if you just speak in broad platitudes and generalized statements, people are unable to walk away with anything. So it's kind of this interesting inverted thought that it's like the more particular you get, the more people are going to connect with what you're doing, with what you're saying, with what you're presenting. And that's where I think character comes into play. So I want to walk through kind of thoughts on what character is, how to kind of try on mentalities. That's kind of what entering into a character is. You're sort of putting on a person and like wearing it and just sort of operating in a mindset that isn't necessarily your own, but it's something that you can really relate to. So I've got a few points I want to talk about. So if brand is a character and a character is a person, well then a brand is a person. It's not a product, it's not a pitch, it is a whole individual. So I'll say this too, that I think that there is kind of like a difference between brand and branding. Branding is sort of like all the ornamental stuff that helps people identify visually or whatever, oh, that's this thing. But the brand is like the heart and the soul. And so when thinking about character, you know, if some people in here may have done acting before, some people may not have, but it's actually pretty easy to think about this process of putting a character on. And one way that I think that is easy to do is think about your mom, think about your dad. These are people who are not you, but you can easily enter into their whole mindset. And it's like, okay, if my dad walked into a restaurant, what would he do? What would he say? If my mom encountered a dog, how would she react? Would she go down and pet it, or would she try to like stay away from it? And you know, you could blow this out into so many different types of scenarios, but this is a great way to take something external from you that you can enter into there and then start to predict behavior that is true to who that person is. So if your mom encounters dogs in a same type of way and almost has like a pattern that you'd be able to predict, you also could think through a scenario of like, well, what if my mom encountered a dog and said something that she'd never said before? You could generate a theoretical possibility that would still have trueness. There's a word, verisimilitude. It's like truthiness. It would be true to who that person is. And that's what I think is important with brands. So the thing to think about is that you are not the brand. You're the one who gets to know it. So in character work, let's just take like a theater script. The script is all that you have. It's not that much information, but it's enough information for you to be able to derive the whole character that you're supposed to embody. And there are a bunch of characters in things, but it's still enough information for you to connect to what's present and blow it out in totality. So we're not the brand. So like, it's the same, it's like a relationship. You know, if you start to, there's always overlap. And it's in that overlap that you can really expound and expand and be able to put yourself into the character. You're not the character, but you can put yourself into it to understand and relate. So if it was like a character, like a villain, like none of us in here likely are super duper evil. I'm not getting that vibe from anybody here. But if we had to put on this notion of behaving like that, well, then we'd start to look at our lives and we'd start to think about like, okay, I've never thought or wanted to do anything like this to people, but I have, you know, been surprisingly upset at my child, and I've been like, wow, I gotta like reel that in, or in an argument, or whatever it may be, or a more positive. There's types of joy that we experience, like, you know, you can sort of imagine how to do that. So I think that, and this point is important because when you're entering into a brand, you've got to figure out how to connect to it and how to operate within the confines of what's there. So the script already exists, you know? If there's like an existing brand, like if we went into the brand of wax space, you know, there's all this source material that's already there that you could look around, you sit, observe, you take it in, you take up the dialogue that's already there, and then you start to put on the mindset of what you observe. And then if you're tasked with doing more in the brand voice, experience, existing, you can do that because you're looking around, and then you can start to understand the logic and behave like that because it has a personality to it that you can perpetuate. Instinct over instructions. So again, I'm thinking about brand as like the soul of the company. Let's think about our own souls and our own way of being. It's not a playbook. There are feelings, there are intuitions. And so I really think that bringing heart into brand is what really brings heart into business. Because yes, there's going to be predictions, there's going to be models, there's going to be ways that, that's going to make sense for the business. But what people don't connect to the business, they connect to the brand. And so you have to have heart elements that go into it. And the heart, the actual heart, is super interesting because it has neurons in it. It's like a tiny brain. And there is legitimate research out there that, which I can link so you can read this paper, about how the heart interacts with the brain through like its electromagnetic field, and that it actually is able to receive information outside the realm of space and time. So that's kind of what intuition is. You have this feeling, but there's really no data, but you just know where to go. So if it feels off, it is. And another way to think about this is like, let's say your brother, or your sister or your sibling or your cousin, you get together with them and they're just like wearing something they just wouldn't typically wear, like a hat with like a patch on it. And you're like, I've heard you say you don't like hats with patches on it. You would sort of talk with them, but you'd be looking at that hat the whole time thinking, this isn't true to who you are. And so I think brands can kind of do that sometimes, where they don't stay to their trueness. And so consistent, not predictable. Characters evolve, but they never break character. And I think that's the way that you can have this heart that's discovered in the brand and then start to continually do new things, because that's what we do. We move through life. We are not fixed, but we naturally evolve. And there's like a course of evolution that makes sense and is not really necessarily drastic most of the time, but has this fluidity. And so, I think about, clothing companies, as that's like my background. You move through the seasons, and all the seasons have different expressions and forms, but they come from the same heart. They come from the same being. And then number 5, let the brand tell you what it wants to be. Once you know the character, the story starts to unfold itself. It's like the trueness of what is happening is self-perpetuating. And it takes stopping and listening and tapping into this thing, again, that is not you. You connect to it a lot of ways. Typically, brands that we work for or are a part of, we have a connection. Otherwise, that would probably be pretty annoying to work for that thing and help bring it forward. So we can listen to it and stay true to it. Then I think I want to kind of share some of my process in incorporating this and developing this. And so, quick sip of holy water. This is new. It's still, having cans is new for us, so each sip is still exciting. This is my process for doing this. This is sort of what I would do if I were to create a new brand, or even if I was entering into an existing brand. It's collecting, colliding, conceptualizing, communicating, and creating. Collecting, an empty hopper is of no use. You have to have material. You have to fill up with things in order to build something. And so collecting for me is really just about like living life and experiencing things and finding things that you're interested in and being excited about what you're interested in. So it can be, I feel like collecting is just, if you're sort of feel depleted, you're like, man, I can't really create anything. Well, then go experience something so that you're charged with emotion and a takeaway that you can then bring to something else. And then I'm a very visual person, so I constantly am collecting different types of images that sort of resonate with my interests, so that I can take all of these things and put them down onto paper or put them inside of Figma, which I use all the time, and then allow for these things to collide. There are no new ideas. If something feels like a new idea, it's just a new combination. It's just one thing being put up against another that creates sort of this dissonance that somehow gets resolved. And so we have to be able to collect these things, put them down in order for them to be able to collide. And once you kind of get these things where it's like, well, this combination is super interesting, let me try to put this idea together. That's what conceptualize is. It's the actual generation of the idea. And then communicating is super duper important. If you're unable to tell others about what you're seeing, this vision, you have to be able to adequately communicate this unseen element to others so that they can start to see how to bring it into reality as well. And then the next step is creating it together. So I'll show you two examples, one with Mizzen+Main, sort of just like how this came together, and then with holy water. So Mizzen+Main, these are just some thoughts, experiences, things that I brought together. So like, well, I like brutalism. I get frustrated with corporate jobs. I feel like I'm different than a way a structured 9-to-5 life is asking me. Old cars are cool. I like menswear. I like having male friends. I like work. I don't like work. I like vintage 70s, 80s, 90s technology. I like plants. And I like the way my dad looked when he was working when I was younger. So these are somewhat connected, but not all of them connected. And so I'm putting this down and I'm thinking, what if there was an environment or an experience where all of these things came together and it made sense and was resolved and ringing, you know, with truth. And so that's kind of where I was with my inner self. These are the parts that I was bringing to the brand of Mizzen+Main, and then trying to like reconcile it all with who we're trying to reach. And so then I started to gather different types of images. You can see like the brutalism there. You look through and it's like, okay, well, this is interesting. Now there's sort of this collision of plants and concrete. There's some tension there. There's some dissonance there of the natural world and the severely artificial world. And brutalism starts to kind of represent this overlording nature of corporate. Well, here's this old technology, so that's kind of interesting. And okay, this photo is interesting because you have this family portrait with this giant computer, which I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can incorporate this old tech to illustrate the weight of work in our lives and sort of its I don't know, brash nature of infiltration into family. Like that's kind of interesting to be able to have this external visual. And so you can see how those items in that board start to come together, and we have these ideas that we can now try to collide and morph into something that can ring true. And then here's some examples of how that started to come to life with Mizzen+Main. It's like incorporating the brutalist architecture with the technology, and this is one of my favorites, and kind of this like surrealism environment of this fantastic man. The way that I would describe Mizzen+Main is that he's a serious guy who doesn't take himself too seriously, and he's able to be himself in the midst of the workplace. The same person that he is out of it. He sort of can move through work with ease, unchanged, resolved, centered. I'm like, that ain't what I can do, but somehow this guy does it and he's fine with it. Sometimes when I'm in a corporate thing, I'm like, man, I got to get out of here. But he's like, it's fine. Because he finds ways to go hit golf balls on the California Highway 1. So that's an example of what I did with Mizzen, and then now I'm in the midst of holy water, and you'll see when we move on to it. I'll say too, this is like years. This is like a super board put together from years of collection, thinking, ideation. This didn't happen in like a week. We're looking at like a lot here. So this can come for all of us if we collect the things that we like and the mediums that resonate with us, writings, pictures, whatever it be. And then this is the result over many seasons. I'll say too, I was with Mizzen for 8 years, and this is like the last 2 or 3 years that I was with him. There's not even images from the first 5, because there was an evolution that happened, and I think that what I'm talking about, of this trueness of brand, was starting to come through. It moved from being a product to being a person that you can connect with and interact with. Then that brings us to holy water. Holy water, basically, you all heard of liquid death, tall boy canned water. We were just like, well, What if there was like a whole opposite side of it? There doesn't seem to be there. It doesn't seem to be one, so let's do it. And that's kind of where the idea started. And then I'm trying to think of like, okay, how can you build like a brand out of this? So just some thoughts that I've got down of like how this could be. These are like interesting concepts that I'm interested in. So like the history of giants on the earth, water, oh me of little faith, to be holy is to be set apart, living water, I believe, help my unbelief, information outside of space and time, prayer, sound and resonance, waves, light, water, walking on water, I believe in God, I haven't always believed in God, does prayer work, life versus death, interdimensional substances. It's like, okay, there's a lot here. There are how can this come together in an experience? And then this is some of the imagery that I've been collecting, kind of these like holy, serene spaces. I still have this kind of brutalist kick. There's actually a surprising amount of like brutalist cathedrals that are so awesome. Not that many in the States though. I love like water and reflections and cymatic patterns and all of these things that come. The Pope Mobile I just think is a fascinating concept. This one's awesome. This was like a gym in the Alamo, guys. I mean, you can't forget this. So part of this collection process, here's one. I came across this as a James Turrell installation, and that's like the baseline concept of this can. Was just from that. It started out as an oval. Thankfully, it didn't end there on the can, and then it turned into this archway. But it really came from collecting this image. It just, boom, I zoomed into it. I think it's interesting because James Turrell, his medium is light. It's light, it's experiencing light itself, not something illuminated. And I feel like that's kind of really a huge parallel to like spirituality and spiritual experiences. And so it kind of morphed into this archway, which I really, maybe it's not time to reveal exactly what it means, but it was just cool to really take these things and have it blow out. And then, this is early days. We've had one photo shoot, so the number of photos are not as large as the last one, but we're getting this thing going. But just trying to think through these different aspects of the brand and the person of the brand, and exploring these types of concepts. I'll say too that like the water, all the water is prayed over at the spring and in inventory, and so we do. We really feel that prayer works and has the ability to change things. There's other studies that show how intention affects the quality of water, and how a good word toward water can improve its molecular structure, a bad word can degrade it. Even words just taped to a bottle of water can have an effect on the water itself. And so we're just taking it that extra step to put some spiritual purity into it. And it comes from the great state of Texas, ladies and gentlemen. The Dallas-Fort Worth area, which is, I believe, the second Holy Land. I don't actually believe that, but maybe we do. The Pope did visit the Alamo, I believe. So very excited to be doing that. But yeah, in closing, just to review that a brand is a character. You can understand it like you would a person. You can relate to it, you can connect to it, its voice, its style, its actions, the way it's going to move into the world, and it comes to life naturally. And be specific. Don't be afraid of things that you're interested in. They're actually extremely valuable. Because you know a lot of things about a lot of very particular things, and that particular interest is unique. And when it collides with something else, that brings about a new experience for others. So be specific. Companies want to be unique. They want to be differentiated in the marketplace. Well, you can't look to the left and to the right of others and then start copying what they're doing. You can be aware of trends, but bring it in. You don't have to do it exactly. Just kind of like do it the way that feels best for the brand, and then you can start to emerge as singular. And then use your gut. Your intuition is valid. We feel things. And it's important to bring it to the table. Of course, match it with data, match it with projections and all that stuff, but don't ignore the heart and the soul, because that is what humans connect to. This is what people, that's how you cultivate love for your brand. and then let the brand evolve. It's not going to be stagnant. People are never stagnant. They're constantly moving, they're constantly changing because we're having these new experiences, which allow for more combinations to be made and uniqueness to continue to perpetuate. So put on the character of your brand, imagine the way that it would think, feel, and behave, write it out on paper, discuss it with others, and then walk in that, help it become embodied in the world through the work that you do. So that's what I got for you guys. Any questions? Yes.
So, how hard is it to then separate brand from yourself? Because it sounds to me like it is separate from you, but then a lot of brands are very much built around a person.
Yes. How to separate the brand from yourself and yourself from the brand and the differentiation of the two. Yeah, I think the the brand, if the brand just can't be you 100%. Just like a character can't, somebody couldn't embody a character 100% of the time. And most of the time, I think brands are external. Even if it's a brand you're creating, there's going to be elements of it that are kind of like not from you. In order for it to make sense to the ultimate person you're trying to have it connect to. And so one of my ultimate examples of, I think, brand as character, and it's kind of to the opposite point that you're talking about, but Ralph Lauren. I think that he is just the master of lifestyle branding, so much so that we're all copying his playbook. Not all of us, but those that know are, because he did it. But Ralph Lauren, the whole brand has this whole like wide range of ideas. Like if you were writing all this stuff down, it's like, how do you connect the two? Well, you connect it because it's Ralph. It's because there are things he's actually interested in. So a tuxedo jacket with jeans makes sense because it's Ralph. It's not forced because the guy is obsessed with luxury, black tie formal wear, and equally obsessed with ranch wear and being in the outdoors. And so he put those two things together, boom, it's Ralph. And it was so non-forced and true to who he is, others wanted to emulate it, I've got jeans and a collared shirt. It's like, and so if you were to enter into a brand, it's like creating a role versus, auditioning for a role and getting the role. You have to put yourself in it, Like, do you have a brand you're thinking of when you were, what?
Can't talk about it yet.
Whoa, secret brand, folks. There's gonna be that overlap. It's like if you have a friend and you and your friend have a shared interest. Well, you could go deep, deep, deep for hours, unending on it, and you can bring other things to it that make the conversation more interesting. You always have to bring yourself to it, but realizing that the brand is not yourself, so it's gonna make decisions that are different than the exact way that you would make it.
Yeah.
And it's going to relate the most to like your target, and so and oftentimes that's not you. Sometimes it is, but that's a thought there. Yes.
Well, you were talking about brands being people, and one of the things, if you think there's a connection, when you talked about Ralph Lauren, I thought about Forever 21, which recently declared bankruptcy. And Ralph Lauren, from the beginning, said that he was not for everyone. And Forever 21 was created for the mass market. Is there something there?
Yeah, I think so. I think the idea of not being for everyone is a good idea, because you can't appeal to everyone. And so I feel like there is a difference between brand and marketing. Marketing is the method to let other people know about your brand, but marketing is performance driven. And so if you start to over-index on the performance, the benchmarks, and making correct decisions by what's on paper, you're gonna start to make decisions that start to lose the trueness of the way that this brand is and wants to be in the world. And over time, others will start to notice and be like, I don't know, it just doesn't have that it just doesn't feel like it's there anymore, and then people just start to drift away. And so I think it is a very good thing to not appeal to everyone, because that means you're doing something that's true, because not everybody is a fan of me, but I gotta be me. Same with a brand. It's got to be who it is.
I'm really interested in that letting the brand evolve concept. Do you mind speaking, like, how do you let that happen organically without losing the authenticity of the original brand you set out to build?
Yes, I think it. So I think about that in terms of like campaigns. A campaign isn't the brand, but it's like an expression of the brand. And campaigns are a part of this evolution. You can't just repeat something you've already done. So you've got to bring something like, quote, new to the market or to the experience. But it could be this collision aspect, or it could be getting more specific. So like zooming in. So, for instance, with Mizzen+Main, we were doing sort of a lot of stuff of just like workwear against brutalist architecture, and then I started to think about plants a lot more, and the motif of bringing that in, and so there was one season where we just blew that out even more, and it kind of created this almost surreal environment of an abundance of plants inside of a workplace. So I think I really think it's trusting something, a commonality that you have with the brand, like if you're researching, I don't know, four-wheelers or something, and you're like, man, okay, well, what if we did maybe it's not four-wheelers, but it could get you on a tangent. You're like, all right, that is what this brand would do. People may not know it overtly, but we who are creating it understand this collision that has this interesting dissonance to it. That's kind of a thought there. Thanks, everybody.